Chapter 1. August Dreams. It begins at the end, for it is the end that begins it all. The moonlight is swallowed by darkness. I'm running in blackness so thick it devours any trace of light. Go! I push myself forward. Knife-like claws scrape against the tree trunks. Their voices scream for blood. My blood. They are coming for me. Jagged limbs reach out to snag my clothes. I jerk in terror, desperate to get loose. Screaming is pointless. My voice is gone, and there's no one to hear me except my pursuers. I am the hunted, and they are gaining ground. I'm the rabbit, and they, the wolves. I can't stop. I have to run. I've come too far to die here. Searching frantically for a way out of the trap, I scramble forward in the darkness, not knowing where to go, but fearing what's behind me more than what lies ahead. The path groans and cracks, giving way behind me. Even the earth betrays me, racing with my pursuers to catch and swallow me. I must run faster. I must run faster, but the soil is unstable. They are gaining ground, and I am losing it. My body feels old. Each rotation of thigh, knee, calf, foot, thigh, knee, calf, foot, grinding down until I am in slow motion, fighting through an ocean of viscous air. Each gasping breath is a hot knife in my chest, tears spilling down my cheeks. No, I cannot cry now. There is no time to mourn, no time to feel. I must run for my life. Fighting despair, I cling to the fear and determination that have become my only surviving companions. But inside, I know I'm losing this race. Then, like each night before, he is suddenly there, running beside me. He is dark and beautiful, and somehow familiar, though I do not recognize his face. We race through the forest together. His voice cuts through the fear and noise. Verily, the door. You must get to the door. I see it, a beacon in the darkness, the door of light. I leap forward as the ground begins to disintegrate behind me. He jumps with me. We jump again and again, my hair whirling with the rising wind. A storm is coming. I'm so tired, so hungry, so thirsty. I cannot remember the last time I tasted food. Remember the door, I chant. Remember the door, the door. I must make it to the door. But the mantra is lost as I stumble and fall, my leg coming down hard where gnarled tree roots are jagged and exposed, lying in wait. I writhe on the forest floor, grasping at my bleeding calf. A twisted finger of wood protrudes from the muscle. Dry heaves overtake my empty stomach. Then the man is there again. He helps me sit up and touches my face with urgent tenderness. His eyes, emeralds beneath dark lashes, are full of a pain I do not understand, but the determination in them is much stronger. You cannot stop here, Verily. You must keep going. You must not give up, he demands, speaking into my ear. His breath is warm against my neck as he whispers, Remember the door. I do not know this man, but for some reason I trust him completely. I push myself upright. Pain rolls over me like a wave as I try to step down on my damaged leg. Forcing down the bile in my throat, I push myself forward. But darkness, void of any goodness, covers the forest, and I cannot see the door anymore. Pain and frustration begin to blanket my brain until small flecks of light fly toward me like a hand reaching out to save a drowning woman. 1,000,000 fireflies swirl around me, engulfing me, their flickering bodies creating a trail of light. The man puts his arms around my waist and helps me forward. Soon, the trail comes to a fork, and the tiny flares of light split around a giant oak tree, dividing into 2 glowing paths, 2 ways. The man turns to me. "Which way do you choose, verily?" Suddenly, I'm aware again of the screeching voices, the rumbling earth, the coming storm. Fear blinds my eyes and paralyzes my thoughts. "I don't know," I cry out in desperation. "I don't know the way." He places his face against my cheek, and I feel the heat of him as he whispers, "The way is in your blood." Lightning flashes and the downpour begins. I stand at the crossroad with his arms around me. The woods around me begin to spin. They whirl faster and faster. The screams echo even louder, until a still, small sound pricks the air. It is the sound of my heart beating, a thumping so low that I'm not sure if I'm hearing it or feeling it. I look down at my shaking fingers. A sharp blade is in my hand. "The way is in your blood," he repeats. My blood? I know what I have to do. I cut my wrist, crying out with pain. As the drops of blood fall to the ground, the forest stops spinning. One path goes dark, the other shines brightly. The man grabs my bleeding wrist. "Now run, verily, run. Remember the door." I see the door again, etched into the giant trunk of a great tree far in the distance. He is right. I must get to the door. I run with all that I have left, all that I am. Then, just as I reach my hand out to push the door open, the earth gives way and I'm flailing, falling into the blackness, and the man is gone. I sat straight up, banging my head on the reading lamp that I had once again left burning. I was back in my bedroom. Every nerve in my body was alert, but the room lay still and silent. After the dark and roaring dream, the stillness was unnerving. My breathing came hard and rapid as my heart hammered against my chest. The night air was warm and thick with the coming rain. The large white windows stood wide open, rippling linen curtains revealing the damp breeze blowing through the room. Sweat beaded on my forehead. "Alabama in August," I breathed out in disgust. Fear reached across the canyon of consciousness, its long fingers pressing down on my chest and squeezed at my throat. Deliberately, I slowed my breathing, willing myself unsuccessfully to forget the dream. I stretched out my cramped legs. As usual, my muscles were sore from running, my arms covered with scrapes and cuts from the trees. I watched as the tiny abrasions faded, and I became fully awake. Most of the books I had been reading before sleep that had overtaken me were scattered on the floor. I found one more under the blankets and put it on the bedside table before flopping back into the pillows. The dream was the same one I'd had for years, but tonight was different. Tonight I had actually made it to the door. I had touched it. This was progress, I mused. But would I ever be able to open the door? Curling up in my side, I rubbed the soft skin that stretched over my sien, the trait that marks me as a simulacrum. Starting at the base of my right pinky, the sien wraps to the inside of my wrist, where the design resembles something like a sparrow made of the inner workings of a clock, with a long tail curling up to the upper side of my hand. Most people assume it's a tattoo, which helps me keep my secret. I was marked from birth, like all simulacrum, like everyone in my family. After my dream, the low, constant vibration of my mark soothed the last of my shivering. Mother told me that even as a baby I rubbed my seein' when I was tired or upset. To explain the feeling that the seein' gives the body was almost impossible. Once, I felt the buzz of electricity pulsing in a wall at an old store, and it instantly reminded me of the comforting vibration of my mark. Though the shape of the seein' is unique for each of us, they all vibrate, and they all claim us as simulacrum. It is comforting to be claimed, to have irrefutable proof that you belong burned into the skin. But the dreams had always been fierce. Nightmares of being abandoned in the dark, of being hunted, had haunted my sleep as far back as I could remember. My screams would erupt in the stillness of night, forging the gap between waking and sleeping. Mother would come running to my room and in one fluid motion scoop me into her arms. She would hold me until my heart stopped racing away with my courage. My face against the embroidered pink roses on her white flannel nightgown, my left fingers methodically tracing my mark over and over. I would eventually be calmed by the touch of warm skin and my mother's presence. Remember, Verily, you are never alone. Feel the vibration in your seeing, the power in it, and remember that you are always protected, always being watched over, never, ever alone. Her mark was circular, with 3 geometric doves, each touching the other's beak in the center. Separating the birds were 3 distinct globes, which held 3 swirling designs inside. In our histories, the dove stood for many things: atonement, the spirit, and even peace. She was peace enough for me. On those nights, Mother would lie beside me with her reassuring warmth and presence until the nightmares departed. When the nightmares were done, when they had used me like a whipping boy night after night, they simply walked away. Wrapped in my mother's protective arms, I would find deep, peaceful sleep. But that was long ago. This year, at 19, I would finally be old enough to attend the council meeting in our sacred grove, the terebinths of Mamre, and to have a voice among my people and to eat from the basar tree. Yet, I still trembled in my bed at night when the dreams came. So what did my age really matter if I could not learn to control the dreams or the fear? Sleep leaned against my eyes as I gently traced the tiny bird on my wrist over and over. Then something, whispered voices maybe, made my eyes fly open. What was that? I strained to hear more, but my breath, thundering in my ears, was the loudest noise in the house. The other sound had come from downstairs. I looked at the clock. 4:38. Too early and too dark for even the birds to be up and singing to the sun. Quietly, I slipped from my bed and out to the hall. Hushed whispers floated through the house. Holding on to the wall, I inched myself forward until I could see the great winding stairs that marched down onto the medallion marble floor of the grand foyer. It was dark, but a light came from Daddy's office, which opened into the foyer. Bending over the oak banister, I could just make out the silhouette of Mother's robe as she stood in the illuminated doorway. Daddy must have dropped something while he was getting ready to leave for work. Relieved, I started to turn back to my bed, but stopped when I heard the catch in my mother's voice. "But Edwin, how long do you think we have until they find us?" She sounded as if she was about to cry. Daddy was slow to answer, weary. He had been working long hours, and his face showed the fatigue more with each passing day. "Gail, I don't know. I believe they are looking for us now. It's only a matter of time until they figure out it's us they're looking for. Right now, they don't know. There have just been reports, rumors at this point. I heard the sound of his rolling chair as he pushed back from his great cherrywood desk. Have you spoken with Austin? You have to tell him that they are watching him, Edwin. Daddy had come to the office door and stood in front of her. He took her hands and leaned down to touch his forehead to hers. Gail, I don't want you to be frightened. I just want you to be aware. I don't understand it all just yet, but maybe if we keep our heads down low enough, it will all just blow over. His voice dropped as he lifted her hands to his face. I sat down with my back against the banister, uncomfortable, watching such a private moment. They spoke for another minute. I heard the front door open, then close. When I looked down, I saw Mother standing at the windows watching him leave. Her slender hands were buried deep inside the pockets of her robe. How long have you been there, Verily? Mother always knew when we were listening. I stood and came hesitantly down the steps. I heard something, and it woke me. Then I heard you talking to Daddy. So you heard? She did not turn to me, but kept her eyes fixed on the window. A little. Who knows about us? What were you talking about? Our secrecy was vital to us, keeping us alive. She turned to me as I reached the cold marble floor of the foyer. I could see that she was debating what to tell me. Verily, you have always wanted to know everything, haven't you? And the truth is, you are strong enough now to know it all. Maybe it is time to tell you. Her voice sounded so far away, even though she was just arm's length from me. I've seen you, Verily, in my dreams. Something is coming. You are stronger than you know. You will have to be. Sometimes we become most free when we have no choice. She stopped and looked so hard at me that it felt like she was looking past me, almost as if she was looking at who I would be, who I could be in the years to come. Maybe you are ready, Verily. Her words lingered, deciding on their direction. But I'm afraid that will have to wait. We have the 175th in a couple of weeks. I have so much left to do. We'd better start the day. She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. She turned back to the window, as if the view of the giant trees which lined the entrance to Red Oaks had called to her. Their leaves were always red, no matter the season, no matter the weather. Some claimed that the soil content was different. Others contended that something in the water colored the trees somehow, or maybe that they were a special type of oak. The truth ran much deeper than the myriad theories. The truth was hidden somewhere within the roots. Mother scanned the landscape like a scout, as if she suspected an advance party from an invading army might be hiding among the giant red trees. Nothing out of the ordinary was outside that window. The cotton and peanut fields around the plantation blew gently in the early morning breeze. The only invasion would be lumbering tractors. For now, the gardens patiently anticipated the kiss of sunrise, and the long branches of the great oaks reached down to caress the ground. All seemed peaceful outside, but a haunting shiver ran through me, making the marble feel even colder under my bare feet. It had been 175 years since the Union Army had marched across Alabama and descended upon Red Oaks in the last days of the Civil War. Confederate soldiers had caught wind of the Union Army moving in and were lying in wait when the Yankees arrived. It wasn't much of a battle. The Confederates were down to mostly old men and young boys, with few weapons and less ammunition against a well-trained, well-equipped division of Blues. The rebels held the Yanks off for a day and a half before the inevitable happened. So it was here, at Red Oaks, that the tattered Old South died in Alabama alongside its men. To commemorate the battle, Civil War enthusiasts from all over the country gathered here each year at Red Oaks, which meant our family, with my oldest sister Adair at the helm, managed the entire event. This year's celebration was still 2 months away, so Mother's attempts to shift the subject to the preparations left me undeterred. I cut abruptly to the heart of the issue. Does this have to do with the Frigates Corps? And why is Uncle Austin involved? Mother whirled around in one quick motion, reminding me how agile she still was. Though already in her 60s, she didn't look a day over 40. Verily, this is the dance card we have been given. The Frigates Corps search, and we evade, but you know we cannot stay hidden forever, my sweet child. We live in their world. She closed the space between us and touched my face. She was so beautiful, even in the early hours of the morning. It was the Iani within her veins, the blood of the one tree. And because of it, the laws of nature did not control her, or any simulacrum, in the same way as it did the Frigates Corps. Their lives had 60, maybe 70 vital years, at which they quickly grew old and decrepit. Our clocks ran far longer, thanks to the Iani, our life force, and the fruit in the terebinths of Mamre. As a precaution, the Simulacrum Council had chosen to set our years in this world to a maximum of 110. It had not always been this way, but as our society changed and we began living in closer proximity to the Frigates Corps, it seemed best to err on the side of prudence and avoid scrutiny, for they were always in search of the Iani. What will happen if they find us? I must have looked like a cornered rabbit, because that is exactly how I felt. Though I tried desperately to hide it from her, I didn't want my fear to alarm her. Reaching down, she entwined my right hand with hers so that our scion touched, and a small, warm shock of energy flowed between us, the bond of blood. Do not worry, little bird. Remember, we are simulacrum, and simulacrum are never alone, for we know the end of the story. I believed her, not only because she was there with me, where I could feel her warmth and smell her sweet scent, but also because I was at Red Oaks, where so many of my people had walked before me. Here, where Daddy was the guardian of the gate, like my grandmother before him, and her mother before her, we were safe. Yet something else tugged at me. The memory of my dreams still entangled me like a worn blanket. For a moment, it pulled me back, and I felt as though I was among the trees with the terror gaining behind me. Is this what haunts my dreams? Is this the unknown? The wolves that hunt me while I sleep? Mother dropped my hand and walked toward the large oak doors that opened onto the front porch. She loved to see the first rays of warm sun reach its fingers over the hills to the east. Then he was there again, stepping out of the dark and into the edges of my mind like a steadying anchor. The smell of him, the touch of his hand, and the undeniable truth in his emerald eyes called me back into the dream from last night. Somewhere on the other side of my dreams, he was reaching for me. I did not know how or when or why, but something told me that the terror from my dreams was coming to Red Oaks. But my heart did not grow cold, because I also knew that he was coming as well. "Who are you?" I whispered to the air. Mother had walked out onto the porch, and as I heard the groan of the old oak doors closing behind her, I heard his voice. "Remember the door, verily."